the family. I don't think you can hear me. We're going to introduce our panel. Brian Benjamin here, Managing Director, Genesis Company, and Community Organizer called Organizing for America. You can follow him on Twitter at Brian A. Benjamin. And Ford O'Connell joining us from D.C., Chairman of Civic Forum PAC and former presidential campaign advisor. A pleasure to have both of you gentlemen with us here today. So just kind of want to get a little bit about your thoughts, reflection on the polling, and I'll begin with you, Ford. Were you surprised by any of that?
Actually, I'm not, because Herman Cain's a very likable guy, and frankly, he's been utilizing cable TV. He's on cable more right now than Anderson Cooper and Jerry Springer combined. And frankly, because he's an affable person and he uses a lot of straight talk, it does not shock me that the anti-Romney voting bloc is getting behind Herman Cain, at least at this juncture. But if he does not build out an organization, it's going to be real hard to translate those polls into votes in the early primary states.
Okay, well, what do you think, Benjamin? I mean, you saw the new. I saw you kind of give a little bit of a reaction when we talked about Newt's numbers, that he's kind of steadily built from 3%, then went to 10, 11, now he's at 12%, and everybody has basically conceded that he's a great debater.
Absolutely. I think, you know, one of the things that I think Ford was pointing out is that there are a couple of issues that really matter: money, organization, message, and as well likability. And right now the Republican Party is not clear on where it wants to go, and so they are moving towards likability from the Tea Party perspective, because they're not really sure, they don't believe in any of their candidates per se. And when you look at Romney is controlling the country club Republicans, if you will, and so that base is going to stay with him, I think, until the time comes for the nomination. So the question becomes, what does the Tea Party do? And I think if Herman Cain can take his likability and transfer that to organization and a strong, consistent message, and he doesn't flip-flop, he's been flip-flopping a little bit, I think he'll be hard to beat.
He's been strong and steady, it seems, from the beginning, kind of maintaining that pole position. But let's talk a little bit about Herman Cain. There's an article in the New York Times discussing his management skills, that this is something that Herman Cain prides himself on, that he's an entrepreneur, that he's a businessman, that he's able to turn around a failing organization, and therefore he's saying he could apply those problem-solving skills to the country and to many of the dire problems that we're facing right now. However, in this article, they say that ex-aides of Herman Cain say this is a campaign in chaos for it, and in particular, we were talking just moments ago about the need to have money, the need to have management, infrastructure, organization to be able to take it the long haul.
Absolutely. And listen, anybody who's been on a presidential campaign, whether in the primary and the general, knows that there's always infighting and there's always disgruntled campaign operatives. That is nothing new. But what is new here is some of the points that his former campaign operatives are making seem to resonate a little bit, and that is the fact that in Iowa, I think he has 4 operatives on the ground. In Nevada, he has 2 operatives on the ground. He's not really running a traditional campaign, and I understand he's ahead in the polls. But again, you've got to translate that at the ballot box. And I think some people just feel right now he's running for down the road, and the question is, can he translate this? That's up to Herman. We're 10 weeks out from Iowa. He can do it, but I mean, he really has to get more of a game plan with regard to on-the-ground optics, because we're hearing that people are saying, hey, I want to throw a fundraiser for him. He's not returning our call. Hey, we don't have bumper stickers. Hey, who do I contact at the campaign? These are not things you want to be running into 10 weeks out from Iowa.
No, you're absolutely right. But like to his credit, Benjamin, I mean, he all of a sudden has had this kind of like meteoric rise. People say in part due to the fact that Perry had this precipitous fall, so drastic, from peaking at 29 at entry to all the way now, the numbers him, like 12%, this, that, depending. So, what does Herman Cain do? And why haven't some of, like you said, like the Republicans that are the country club ones or the establishment or et cetera, the big money power brokers, the bundlers, gotten behind him significantly enough? Because this hasn't been a flash in the pan in terms of his numbers. It's a little bit difficult to reconcile the two.
Well, I think it's simple. They don't think he can win against Obama. And so part of what the Republicans are feeling, or what we were feeling in 2008, which is that we want a winner.
Right.
And I think the issue with Herman Cain is, if he can't build this organization and he can't get some of these basic issues together in terms of raising money that's right there on the table for him, and building an organization that's right there on the table for him, if he can't manage like he did at Godfather's Pizza, then the question becomes, how is he going to go up against $90 million of Obama right now and steadily growing? And so I think what he has to do is he has to convince the base that he can run a tight campaign, he can be disciplined, he can stay on message, and that he can build an organization with people who matter. But let me say this. I think what he has done...
He's still doing well in the polls there, though, in Iowa and these other places, and in general in national polls.
Because he's appealing to the common voter. And the common voter feels like they've been shut out. That's what Occupy Wall Street's about. That's what a lot of these movements are about. People feeling like their voices aren't being heard, and the Mitt Romneys of the world do not give them comfort.
All right, Ford.
Well, I mean, it's quite clear that Herman Cain has been given an opportunity here, and the question is whether or not he can build it out. But I think you're overplaying what's going on in the Republican Party. In the Republican Party, we have two very distinct groups. The first is sort of the Romney establishment Republicans, and the second is the anti-Romney voting bloc, okay? The anti-Romney voting bloc not only comprises Tea Partiers, it also comprises social conservatives. And the question is whether or not the anti-Romney voting bloc will get behind one candidate or back a cadre of candidates as it's doing right now with Gingrich, Perry, Cain, Bachmann. And that's the real question. Look, Mitt Romney's built for the long haul. And if I had to walk into a Las Vegas casino today, I would say Mitt Romney's, going to win the nomination. But it's not guaranteed in stone because he's not able to get beyond establishment Republicans. He's not able to connect with Tea Partiers and social conservatives because in a lot of ways they just don't trust him right now. And the onus is on Mitt Romney to sort of stave off the ability of the anti-Romney voting bloc to sort of coalesce behind one candidate. That's really what we're seeing here.
Well, this one of these stories in this particular article is distressing. I mean, it seems like maybe his scheduler, and I know how this has, been First Lady of San Francisco, and I worked in politics for years, did 16 campaigns, but if you don't have it on the schedule, it gets tough to memorize the whole thing. And the one instance where he had big donors, going to give him money after a speech, and they called, say, okay, I see you upstairs. He's like, well, I'm already at the airport. Like he somehow didn't know about it or wasn't on the schedule. That's real tough. That's going to turn off people, and it's very difficult to get them back after you kind of burn them like that, Benjamin.
Well, I think
Kimberly, that's very true, but I do want to say that about 65 to 70% of Republican primary voters have not made up their mind. I agree. Should we turn the corner in Iowa and this stuff continues to happen? You're absolutely right. I mean, this is, anybody who's been around this sort of rodeo understands that, and I don't think that a lot of Americans truly understand what goes on behind the scenes in politics.
Well, I think that he has time, all right? I mean, I think the good news for Herman Cain is that in spite of all of these gaffes, you see the polls. And I think if he can make a really strong effort to build out his staff, and some people feel that he's on a book tour, right? He's spending a lot of time in the South, traveling around. And so I think if he can show that the serious Republicans that he is serious about running this race and winning for the long haul, not just winning their nomination, but winning the presidency, I think he might be able to pull it off.
Brent, what's your prediction, though? A lot of people are saying, and like Carl and whatnot, that, Romney's going to take New Hampshire. Romney could, he's going to now participate in Iowa. He's not expected to do so well there. But if Herman Cain wins Iowa, then is it going to start to maybe shift and they'll take it more seriously?
Well, I'll defer to Ford on some things, but I believe that Michelle Bachmann is stronger than we think. My sources in Iowa tell me that she has a great organization out there, and people are very excited about her. But let me say this: I think if Mitt Romney, who I think will win the nomination, I believe if he wins, my prediction is there'll be a strong third-party candidate who will sort of comprise some of this Tea Party, anti-Romney.
Which is exactly what you want.
That is correct.
But what do you think, Ford? Talk to me about Iowa for a minute.
Well, I always love when I get my inside baseball from Democrats. It's always refreshing to always see what they have to say. Now, with regard to Iowa, if Herman Cain wants to seriously win the nomination, he needs to win Iowa, because I think that would provide the spark where some more experienced campaign hands would come in and try to show him the way in South Carolina and Florida.
Right.
But I do think right now, as we stand here, Mitt Romney is built for the long haul, and he's likely to win the nomination. And Herman Cain's chances of winning the nomination are highly unlikely.
Well, who do you expect to win in Iowa?
Who do I expect to win in Iowa? Right now, there's a hodgepodge of candidates. I think Herman Cain could do well. Believe it or not, I think Texas Governor Rick Perry could do well. Why? Because he's talking about guns, abortion, and he's an agricultural commissioner. And anybody who spent 10 minutes in Iowa knows how important ethanol is to the Iowa voting bloc, okay? So there are several people that can do it. And I do think right now, Mitt Romney's wise to sort of quietly walk around Iowa as these guys sort themselves out because, again, remember, we've changed our primary rules. It's not winner take all anymore till Super Tuesday. So the question is, how long can you stay in the game? And because it's a marathon right now and not a sprint, I got to give Romney the upper hand.
Okay, I want to talk about something. There's so many things I'm excited to discuss today. I have you two guys here and doing a great job. Marco Rubio, there's an article in the Washington Post saying that if Marco Rubio is on the ticket, that could be risky for the Republican Party. Okay, forward then, Brian.
I'm going to just say this. It's quite clear that Team Obama is scared of Marco Rubio because the number one group that they need to win in this election is Hispanics, and Marco Rubio scares them to death because here's a Hispanic who's conservative, which goes against the media norm.
Okay, and look, he's taking some
wait, I just want to say one thing. The Washington Post is overplaying its hand on this story.
Shocking. Shocking.
Well, let me say this. I don't believe that just because Rubio is Latino that he would necessarily bring those votes, particularly when you highlight some of his stances, particularly on immigration. And so I think let's not overdo it. I do think he's attractive, and I do think that he would be a strong addition to a ticket, but it depends on who's on top of the ticket. I mean, if you have Mitt Romney on the top of the ticket who's very anti-immigration, I think that having Rubio behind him is not going to necessarily make the difference.
But he has said before.
Here's how I have to strongly disagree with you.
Okay.
Because really, no matter who the Republicans nominate, this election is going to come down to 7 or 8 states, okay? And three groups that are going to matter are independents, Hispanics, and seniors. And we know very well that the Republicans can win this election if in Florida and the Southwest, they can strongly appeal to Hispanics, because what we need to get is 40% of Hispanics in places like Colorado, Nevada, and Florida. And Team Obama knows that if it wants to win because the economy is not going to improve, it needs to get 70% of Hispanics in those states. So frankly, trust me, we're walking a very fine line here. But I do think that there's other great Hispanics who could be other vice presidential nominees for the Republican Party, including Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval is fantastic. New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez is fantastic as well.
Yeah.
So, and remember, those states are also have a high concentration of Mexicans. So I think both those candidates could appeal very well in the Southwest and in Florida.
Well, Brian brings up a good point, though, because, you know, Marco Rubio is very conservative on issues of immigration. He opposed the nomination of Sonia Sotomayor.
Absolutely.
So there's issues there where he's a mixed bag for Hispanics. But look, he's very charismatic. People like him a lot. He's been taking some heavy hits lately, you know, some kind of smear campaigns out against him, because I think, you know, he is formidable, and people are worried about him, at least the Democratic Party, about, you know, getting in. Definitely. Okay, there's a GOP presidential nominee poll that Fox News had trending from the dates of October 23rd and 25th for the sample dates. And that still shows, look, Herman Cain 24, Romney 20, Newt at 12, Rick 10, Ron Paul 9, Michelle Bachmann 3. Do you think that you will see any of these people drop out anytime soon? Because it kind of seems like there's 3 people doing very well. And I don't think Newt's going to drop out. He hasn't yet, and he's continued to rise. But at least maybe like 4. But what about Michelle Bachmann? If she doesn't do well in Iowa, is she out? What do you think, Brian?
I think she's out if she doesn't do well in Iowa. But that's her home state. If she can't exceed expectations in Iowa, it's a problem. And I think that's what these primaries are about, exceeding expectations. And as the expectations get put on Herman Cain and Romney, that really opens the door for, if Perry does very well, he can really outperform, because he's going to have the money to sort of take it through. As Ford said, I mean, they've changed the rules. It's not winner takes all anymore.
He didn't get much of a bump, though, or any at all, with the release of his economic plan. I don't know how much you factor that in, Ford, if you think that's significant or it just really doesn't matter.
Well, I really think that Texas Governor Rick Perry really needs to get back to retail politicking. He needs to start barnstorming in places like Iowa and South Carolina, speaks, face to face, and explain his tax plan. He's brought on some heavy guns, folks like Tony F. and Anderson, who really can help him message this. And I really believe that if he messages it properly, we may see a rebirth of Rick Perry in Iowa, particularly given his ag background and his stance on guns and abortion.
All right, we're going to swing it back to the panel, get some final thoughts. And want to get, in particular, Brian, your comments. A New York Times article. This is great news for President Obama. Black support for Obama steady and strong. And
black support for Obama will stay steady and strong because, first of all, when you look at Obama, when he does not have to deal with this Republican Congress, straight successes. Bin Laden, caught. Libya, Egypt. his national security credentials, Gaddafi, I mean, his national security credentials are strong. Whenever he's able to make decisions, what he's doing with the federal loan program, student loan program, when he's able to bypass these Republicans who are trying to take him down, he's doing very well. And
Our homeowners refinance
yes,
program,
exactly.
all
So
by
a lot
executive
of us,
order.
so a lot of us feel that if the Republicans are going to try to take him down, we're going to stand with him. And that's what we think a lot of this is. The Republicans trying to take aim at the president because they want to take back the White House.
And that's what you're hearing out in the communities.
Absolutely.
And you said, out in Harlem and everything.
Absolutely. We're hearing out in the community that the president, we stand with him. He's doing a great job. He's fighting a tough fight. The Republicans are really going after him pretty hard in unprecedented ways, which we all know. Even Ford has to admit to that. And we're going to support him. And when we support him, he'll win.
All right, Ford, we get your rebuttal.
I never thought the black community was going to abandon President Obama. I think this is being drummed up by David Axelrod. Let's be honest here. But what the president is most concerned about is making sure that the black vote is maximized in Virginia, North Carolina, Ohio, and Florida. Because, again, we are down to 7 or 8 states nationally. No one is really concerned about the sort of overall national black vote. It's about maximizing the black vote in those states.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. I think he's got him. He's going to keep him, although Herman Cain said that he feels he could take about a third of the black vote. What do you think?
Absolutely
And
not.
I'd love to see it.
Absolutely not. No chance.
No chance? Oh, he says a big no to the CEO of Godfather's Pizza. Okay, well, gentlemen, it's been truly a pleasure. I say yes to both of you. Thank you so much for being here with us on America's Election Headquarters, and love to have you back again real soon.
Thank you, Kimberly.
All right.
Thank you.
And we're going to take a quick commercial break.